Hooday, Bengal fans. He is Eric. I am Jake. This is the Bengals Pulse, the heartbeat of our Cincinnati Bengals. Our guy Mon is out protecting our community tonight. So wherever you are, Mon, be safe. We love you. We'll see you again on Thursday. We appreciate everything you do for us and our community. Tonight, Eric and I will be discussing Bengal news. And talking a little bit about the championship games, Eric, and then get into some coaching moves as well. So tonight is going to be just a night of talking a little bit of Bengals football. Listen, guys, on Thursday, you're not going to want to miss Thursday's show. Thursday's show is one of my favorites that we do every year. That is the Q&A show. So make sure you tweet us through Twitter, message us some questions you want us to talk about on Thursday's show. Plus, make sure you join us because we're going to be taking questions live as well. It's going to be Q&A with Jake, Eric, and Mon on Thursday. You are not going to want to miss it. I absolutely love that show every year. Hooday to all of our awesome listeners. We love you guys. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. Again, for the ones just joining us, Mon is out protecting our community. But tonight, Eric and I have the show. Eric, how are you doing this week, bud?
I'm good. Yeah. I mean, it's hard watching, we love watching football so much. It's hard watching a AFC Championship game. But not only do you have your team isn't in it, but you dislike most of the players that are out there. But we're such football fans that we get into it. We break it down. We argue over what's going on. Go back and forth. So kind of bittersweet, but it is what it is. Football is football, and we still have 2 more weeks of it left. Not the Super Bowl matchup. I don't know that outside of Kansas City and Philadelphia, there's not many people that really wanted that matchup, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. I mean, you look at you look at those 2 championship games, and you definitely you understand why the Chiefs did what they did, right? You understand why the Chiefs laid down that final week because they knew their road was much easier without having to play the best quarterback in the NFL in Joe Burrow. Going to be an interesting game. I think a lot of people are talking about the calls in the game. Yes, there were some back. Again, you're going to get that in Kansas City. You're not going to get. You're not going to. The refs are not going to give you any leeway in Kansas City. They get all of the calls. But I will say this: I was really disappointed, Eric, in the way the Buffalo coaching staff called that game. I thought it was.
Yeah.
I thought it was just really bad on their part. Let James cook, right? Let him cook. It's in his name. The Chiefs couldn't stop James Cook. And, it really felt like the Bills pushed that Josh Allen narrative of trying to win an MVP instead of worrying about winning the football game. And Josh Allen didn't play very well. His first 2 passes should have been picked off. So Josh Allen did not play well. And again, I think this is one of those instances where Josh Allen now 0-4 against Mahomes in the playoffs. They wanted him to be the glory and the hero when you have James Cook in the backfield who couldn't be stopped. And not only that, Eric, but when you're running James Cook, guess who's on the sideline, right?
Yeah. No, it was very disappointing. And I know the running back was really going off, but just the play calling in general, when you're playing the Chiefs, you're going to have to put up points. But there were so often that they were doing the tush push for 3rd and 1. 3rd and 1, I know Coach Jake agrees with me on this. A lot of people hate when the Bengals call this play. But 3rd and 1, when everybody's expecting you to go for that 1 or 2 yards, that's the time to take the shots. That's when you get those one-on-one matchups on the outside. I wanted to see aggressiveness from the Bills, and it just wasn't there. They were playing to get into a one-score game rather than going out there and trying to win the game like you should. We criticize Zach Taylor so often for playing not to lose a game instead of playing to put the other team away. And that's absolutely what the Buffalo Bills did. We talk all the time in AFC North how we've kind of got this merry-go-round where, one team has, the Browns have the Steelers number, the Steelers have the Ravens number. This year, I don't know whose number the Bengals had, but in years past, we were able to take the Ravens out. The Bills, the Chiefs just have the Bills number. They get in their head and they make those coaches change from the way they normally coach, and it's crazy.
Well, and the Bengals have the Chiefs and the Bills number, right? I mean, Joe Burrow's 5-2 against the Chiefs and the Bills, and again, there's only one man playing quarterback right now in the NFL that has beaten Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs, and he wasn't in the playoffs because the Chiefs did a really good job of laying down Cincy Light. You're right, Cincy Light. The Bills don't even run the tush push right. They look so disorganized trying to run it. And I'll be honest with you, some still frames came out today. I don't think Josh Allen had the first down. We all saw it on TV, and it looked like that he did. But the pictures that came out today, the ball was in his right hand. He didn't even have the ball in the right hand, in the run path hand. It is what it is. I mean, listen, I'm for the next 2 weeks, I am a diehard Eagles fan because I do not want to see Patrick Mahomes lifting up another trophy. I know all we have to do is get through this Super Bowl, Eric, and for the next 5, it's the Joe Burrow show.
So let's get your opinion on this. What's the better narrative? I absolutely do not want the Chiefs to three-peat. I mean, as it is, we have to win 4 in a row to be able to talk to Chiefs fans or say anything. But what would you?
Right? At least 3.
Yeah, I'd say 3, 4 in a row. Yeah, but a lot of people are out there. They want to keep with that narrative that Burrow is the only quarterback to beat Mahomes in the playoffs. So if the Eagles win the Super Bowl, that narrative, we can still lean on the fact that he's the only AFC quarterback to beat him in the playoffs. But now Jalen Hurts would be a quarterback that would be able to say, "Hey, I went up against Mahomes and I took it to him."
Yeah.
Where do you lean on that? Is it?
Listen. We get into this argument, friendly argument, in our text.
Do you want me to tell everybody where you're leaning?
So we go back and forth. Eric and Mon and I and Zim and Ace, and it's all in good fun. But Ace is a Jalen Hurts guy. I am not. Listen, the Eagles have the best offensive line in football, the best defensive line in football, and the best running back in football. And I'll tell you where I stand on it. If the Eagles beat the Chiefs, to me, it's not Jalen Hurts doing any damage. It is that they are so loaded in the trenches. And again, the Bengals, in their defense, that's how they set this team up, and that's why I think they're going to win the Super Bowl this year. I think their offensive line and defensive line is the best that I've seen this year of any football team. And Saquon Barkley, if it weren't for Joe Burrow being the best player in the NFL, Saquon Barkley is probably a close number 2 because he is absolutely just disgusting. I mean, he has literally carried this team on his back. Jalen Hurts has to throw the ball 18. Can you imagine, Eric, if Joe Burrow only had to throw it 18 times a game? I mean, we'd have 4 Super Bowl rings right now.
Yeah, that'd be crazy. All right, so I'm saying that the only way that Jake's going to give Jalen Hurts credit, if he wins the Super Bowl, Jalen Hurts has to win the Super Bowl. He has to come away with the Super Bowl MVP.
Yes.
And Saquon Barkley has to be held in check. That's the only way that he's going to give Jalen Hurts for winning this. Now, I don't know that Ace is necessarily a Jalen Hurts guy. Ace is a Jalen Hurts is greater than Matthew Stafford guy, and that's where the conversation.
Well, that's where it started, but Ace is definitely a Hurts guy. Listen, I get a lot. He loads up my text message thing with Jalen Hurts stats and all this stuff. Listen, Jalen Hurts to me is an average quarterback in the league. He is average. He's not above average. He's a guy that he fits the system. And again, this Eagles team has had the best offensive line in football for the last 3 or 4 years, and it hasn't changed. And now their defensive line has caught up to it. This Eagles team is very dangerous. Let's talk a little bit real quick, Eric, about that Eagles Commanders game. I mean, the Commanders, a good football team, and they weren't even in the football game ever. I mean, the Eagles completely dominated them, Eric.
Well, yeah, they didn't appear to show up. I mean, turnovers early on really took them out of that game and took them out of what they do best. It was really sad to see, but it was Eagles defense just being dominating. They talk about Hurts all we want, but the Eagles defense is what took control of that game and really took it out of the Commanders' hands. Commanders are an up-and-coming team. When we saw them on our schedule this year, everybody thought, oh, that's an easy win. It was not an easy win, and they proved to be one of the best teams in the NFL. So I think the future is bright for them. Unfortunately, we know you don't get there that often. You can't assume you're going to get there next year. So they've got to continue off of what they did, and they've got to learn from, seizing the day when you're there, because they might not be back there next year. So
yeah, I mean, we know that firsthand, right? And you're right, Jennifer. Both centers are hurt for Philly. That's what makes it so impressive. They were rotating those guys in and out. Philadelphia had 7 rushing touchdowns. Seven rushing touchdowns in an NFC Championship game. That is insane. That is absolutely crazy. And I think this is a matchup that if the Eagles let Saquon Barkley cook, I think the Eagles win by 2 scores. I mean, I think the Eagles are that much better than the Chiefs. It's almost like Jalen Hurts, do not lose us this football game. Just give the ball to Saquon Barkley and let him cook. He's different, man.
He transforms that team. Their game is really that read option, and when you have a dominating running back like that, and I just that frustrates me more, because every team in the NFL had a chance to sign Saquon this year. We could have had him on the Bengals. Can you imagine Saquon Barkley coming in?
Imagine that? Oh my God.
And then with Chase Brown spelling him, good. I mean, we would have won those games. We would have been in the playoffs. We would.
Oh my God. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine Saquon in the backfield, Joe Burrow? What the hell? That wouldn't even be fair. I think too, I do want to say this, because I'm a Jaden Daniels fan. I thought Jaden Daniels was the best quarterback to come out of that draft when the draft happened. And I think Jaden Daniels, I think he's a dude. I mean, Jaden Daniels is really the only guy that showed up to play the football game. I mean, everyone else around him pretty much sold, and Jaden Daniels cooked. I mean, he's special, man. He is going to be a tough matchup every year. He's a good football player, and again, he kind of has that eye of the tiger, so to speak, that Joe Burrow has. He's got that foxy.
I don't know if it's LSU, how they choose him, or just how they coach him, but yeah, he's got that factor. He's got that Joe Burrow killer mindset. Yeah. You could see even the games where they were dominating, it wasn't enough. He wasn't over there celebrating. He was just matter of fact. Yeah. He's got what you want out of a franchise quarterback. And it's exciting, and it's exciting to see that he plays in the NFC, so we only have to face him potentially in a Super Bowl or once every few years. With that, we talked enough about those games. Let's talk about some Bengals news, why we're here, the reason we do this show. We debate we're in the off season now, so we debate 2 shows a week, 1 shows a week. We're going to have these conversations anyway, so why don't we just have them on camera? This is basically what we do every day. We think Bengals. We might as well go on here. We try and do a nice structured show for y'all, but in reality, it's just bringing you into our living room, seeing what we're going to talk about anyway. So with that, we have some Bengals news, some really surprising Bengals news today. But we got word that Eric All had some setbacks or a more difficult surgery on his second ACL tear, and will be out for the whole 2025 season. So, Jake, why don't you give me your thoughts on that and where we go from here?
Eric, I'll be honest with you. I think this is a big hit. I mean, I think this is a bigger hit than what some people might think. Eric All, we did our offensive grades last week, and myself and Mon and you both. I mean, all 3 of us. I had Eric All as one of my highlights of the season. And now, man, you tear the same ACL in both knees. I'm gonna be honest with you. Eric All might not be playing football again. I hope that's not the case, but it sucks losing him. And I think what we really need to talk about is the fact that Eric All, losing him for the year, now makes the tight end position a need again. It really does. I mean, we don't know what they're going to do with Mike Gesicki, right? We hope that they re-sign him. I think that Joe Burrow will push for Mike Gesicki to get re-signed. And I think Mike wants to be back. But I still think even with Mike Gesicki coming back, tight end has got to be back on the board, right? I mean, you look at Mike, you look at Drew Sample. I know they like Grandy. They just brought him back, but he's not that guy. I think tight end's back on the board. What do you think?
Well, and that's the frustrating part. We want Mike Gesicki back. But Mike, Joe Burrow gets tight ends paid, and Mike hasn't been paid. So if somebody comes out there and says, we really like what you did with Joe Burrow, here's $10 million a year for 3 years, Mike's gone because we're not going to give him that same contract.
Yeah.
And he should go jump at that. I hope that he wants to play with Burrow for another 2 to 3 years. But at the same time, our front office isn't going to be able to offer him the same deal he got last year.
Yeah.
With that being said, Mike Gesicki is not a tight end. He's not Eric All replacement. He is a receiver. That's really what he does most. The most valuable thing that Eric All did, he loved to block. He loved to grind it out. And we haven't really had that. We've got Drew Sample, but Drew Sample doesn't do the receiving part of it. Drew Sample is a great blocker. Once in a while, he'll catch a pass. Eric All was loved coming down the line, going in motion, cracking that end, and then going out for a route. We don't have that on the roster this year. Yeah. We didn't see what Tanner McLachlan was. We haven't seen that bit out of Tanner Hudson. We know Tanner Hudson can catch the ball. I kind of put him more in the Mike Gesicki category, though. He's a receiving tight end. Yeah. He's not that do-it-all guy. So
I think you had to, when the Bengals drafted Eric All and Tanner McLachlan this year, you have very similar tight end, with what they're going to get from those guys, right? They're both bigger bodied guys that you're hoping can block and be some type of receiving threat. Although McLachlan, he really couldn't. He was banged up at first, and then he couldn't really break the starting lineup. I mean, at some point, I think the Bengals. I don't know. I was a big McLachlan guy. I liked that pick. And I think I said that on after draft weekend, like he was one of my top picks, and he just didn't pan out. I mean, again, it's a small sample size, and maybe they have some stock in him. But guys, Grandy broke the starting lineup before him. You know what I'm saying? Like that's not a good look, and it's not a good sign on what the Bengals think of McLachlan. So. I don't know. Going to be interesting. Going to be interesting to see how this tight end room pans out. And yes, Cincy, you can usually get a quality tight end rounds 5 through 7. But guys, remember the Bengals only have 6 draft picks. 6
Yeah.
draft picks. That's not a lot when you have some holes that you're going to have to fill.
Well,
Go ahead.
And to add that you spent 2 draft picks on tight ends last year,
Right.
and you brought in an undrafted free agent tight end, and all 3 of those guys are on your roster right now.
Mm-hmm.
So how many swings can you keep taking at it?
Yeah.
I throw this out there. I wasn't really aware of this until this week, but CJ Uzama is back on the Eagles, and he is playing in another Super Bowl. I mean, I know he was on a 1-year deal. If you don't go swinging at a big name blocking tight end, I wouldn't be opposed to bringing him back to do the dirty work, because he did all of it. He's not, one of the youngest guys, but he did the stuff that Eric All does, plus made some catches. So I'd throw that out there, that maybe he's an inexpensive free agent next year that we can bring back for a reunion tour.
Yeah, and KP, you're right, man. Our scouting department has to be better. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how everything shakes out, right? I know we're going to talk a little bit about possible cuts here down the road, but there are a lot of possible cuts now with the change of guard on the defensive side of the ball. There could be some cuts there, and then offensively, I think there are going to be some cuts there. The Bengals are going to try to free up some money in different spots, so it's going to be interesting to see how it all pans out. But I really feel like Mike Gesicki will be a Bengal again. But again, like you said, Mike Gesicki is a different type of tight end. It's just going to be interesting to see how this all pans out. The Bengals have a very interesting offseason coming up, and it's got to be a productive one, right? I mean, they have got to hit home runs in the draft and in free agency, and of course too, signing their own guys back and cutting some guys that need to be cut.
Yeah. And just one note on that, we don't have a big scouting department. Everybody, we talk about that a lot. But Trey Brown was up for a GM job with the New York Jets, did not get that job. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. We would have gotten a comp pick this year in the 3rd and next year. But honestly, we need him this year. He's one of our scouts. He's one of our key guys. He is a young, up-and-coming, bright star in the executive rooms of the NFL. So I would have loved to have that comp pick, but honestly, I think we need him to help hit this out of the park this year. So kind of happy to have him back.
I agree. I think Trey Brown, listen, you can keep your 3rd-round picks. We need Trey Brown. Honestly, I'm at the point where Trey Brown just needs to take over. I mean, at this point, why not give Trey Brown a shot? There's a lot of teams out there that are very interested in Trey Brown, and why not give him a shot? I mean, Duke Tobin it's not working. It's not working. And Trey Brown, an up and coming guy, why would you not give him a shot? KP, we're going to be talking about all the draft stuff as we get closer, but I'm going to throw this out here, KP. Don't take my steam, because I'm going to talk about the Bengals trading down when we get closer to that, because I really feel like the Bengals' best opportunity is to trade down this year and grab some more draft capital. But we're going to talk about that later, KP, as we get closer to the draft.
For sure. Yeah, I agree. I think this is...
And hire Trey Brown. That was my point in that whole thing. Fire Duke, hire Trey. And hire about scouts, because we need more scouts.
Jake's going to be chanting that at the Pro Bowl this year. Other news and notes that came out of this week, the Bengals announced that they are retaining cornerbacks coach Chuck Burks. Some people are surprised by that. Not everybody was super happy with how the corners performed in the beginning of the year. I think he did a very good job in dealing with all the injuries and dealing with all the turnovers out there, and revitalizing some players. And Jake taking Dax Hill, teaching him to play corner when he's a safety. Any quick thoughts on that?
Oh, absolutely. I am a huge Burks fan. A huge Burks fan. I was very happy. I got a little nervous because they kept him, and then they talked about, well, he still has to meet with Golden and stuff. So Golden, to me, this is a check mark for Golden for me, keeping Chuck Burks. Listen, Chuck Burks is very highly regarded around the league. He's an up-and-coming defensive coach. And listen, we talk about how bad the play was at corner, but in his defense, there were so many injuries, and they basically, listen, think about what they threw at this guy this year, right? They said, okay, we're letting Awuzie go. We're going to give you Mike Hilton. Cam Taylor-Britt is a sophomore. Basically, we're going to, DJ Turner is, you got to make him into a starting boundary corner. And then, you know what else you got to do? The guy that we spent a first-round capital draft pick on, you got to make him into a corner because he can't play safety. I mean, they threw a lot at this guy. So as bad as the corners played, I don't think you can put that on Chuck Burks. And I think Al Golden understands that because, listen, Burks retaining him, the players love him, and I think he's an up-and-coming defensive coach.
Yeah, well, and there was some nervousness in the Bengals offices because Lou tried to get him to go to the Colts, and thankfully his relationship with Golden kept him there. Otherwise, he would have gone with Lou.
And let me throw this out too. Think about Newton. Think about Josh Newton, Fig Newton, how well he he's a guy that we're going to have to count on. And Burks really developed. I mean, that's what we're talking about, right? We're talking about having coaches that develop players. I know we're going to talk about Al Golden in a minute, but that is what we are lacking and what we have been lacking with Lou Anarumo. I love Lou. Lou did so many good things for this organization, but developing defensive players was not one of them. Eric, 9 out of the last 10 draft picks, high capital draft picks, spent on the defense, and we have nothing to show for it, Eric. Nothing.
Yeah, it's why we didn't do. We didn't make the playoffs this year. We didn't make the playoffs last year. The defense is what held us back, and when you have a dynamic offense and a high-paid offense like this, you have to be able to shift your strategies and coach young rookies, second-year players. You can't have this ego and just say it's my way. They're going to learn the system. You got to be able to do it. It is what it is. It's the nature of the NFL when you've got a high-paid quarterback and a high-paid receiver. Bengals also announced that they hired Mike Hodges to coach the linebackers. Now, I don't know a whole lot about him, so maybe you can give our listeners some insight or some information on him.
Well, first of all, let me say this because we are already starting to get the the buddy hire again, right? We know that it came out that Mike Hodges is good friends with the Bengals strength and conditioning coach. So is this another buddy hire by Zach Taylor? But let me say this. Hodges is has coached on the defensive side of the football in the NFL since 2017. So this is not a guy who is coming into this situation green, right? He was a defensive assistant with the Saints. He was an assistant linebacker coach with the Saints. Then he was a linebacker coach for the Saints for the last 4 years. Last 4 years, right? 20, 21, 22, 23. Actually, last 5 years. He was the linebacker coach with the Saints. So this is a guy that obviously understands the position. Again, I don't really follow the Saints that much, but I look at um, productivity from talent, right? So you got to look at the talent, and then you look at the productivity that they get from the talent. And what I like about this guy is he's young. He's 38 years old. He is a hard nosed coach from what we've heard. And again, the Saints have not had a lot of talent in the last couple of years, so it's hard to go by off of what the Saints and what kind of production that he got from the Saints. But you know why I like it, Eric? Because it's a fresh face. You know what I mean? Like it's a fresh face. It's a young guy. It's a hungry guy. These are the guys you usually see, moving on and becoming coordinators down the road. So I really like it. I like the fact that he's hard nosed, and I love the fact that they talk about him having a high energy level, and you're seeing that with this defensive staff that's being put together with Golden and Montgomery and now Hodges, and we know Burks is a high energy guy. You can see that from the corners, Cam Taylor-Britt, the way those guys play. So I think you're seeing a defensive staff being put together that is going to bring a lot more energy and help develop a lot more when it comes to the younger guys. So I think there's definitely a common theme here. And we kind of heard it in Al Golden's press conference, right? The fact of he's trying to put together a staff that's very much player development and player directive, where the players have a little bit more say in it. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah. Well, and one big thing with this, Al Golden's specialty is linebackers. So he's not going to bring a guy in that doesn't know how to coach linebackers. But on top of that, if Mike Hodges isn't the best linebackers coach, well, we know what Al Golden did with the linebackers back in our Super Bowl run. So he's got a guy to fall back on. He's got the head guy to do it. So let's get into that notes from the press conference and some of those things that we heard. Some of the key points that, there was a lot said. It was over a 30-minute press conference, so normally not that long. As a lot of people have alluded to, a lot of coach speak. Some of the things that really jumped out at me that I like the most, and I'll give some quotes here for them, but one of the things that really jumped out at me that I kind of lean on is talking about young players. His philosophy is there's a couple things here. One, he said, we don't draft them to sit next to me. And that's the number one thing. Like, I felt Lou wanted the guys to, yes, they're first-round picks or second-round picks, but they need to earn their stripes. We don't have the luxury to earn your stripes. So having him going of that mantra that these draft picks need to play is big for me. The other thing that I really latched on to was his philosophy for doing these installs with these young guys. He pointed out that not everybody learns the same. Some guys need to see it in the playbook. Some guys need to see it on their phone. Some guys need to watch videos. Some guys need to be walked through it. The fact that his ego isn't too big, a lot of these coaches, and I think our prior coaches were out there and said, this is my way. You're going to learn it my way. This is how we do things. It's not what he's about. His way is whatever works for individual players. And every young man is different, and every young man grabs onto something you say. You might motivate me by yelling at me. You might motivate another player by praising them. And knowing how to coach each player is key, and I think that's going to be huge. What are your thoughts on that?
I think you hit it on the head. I mean, when you hear a coach talk about that, when you hear a coach talk about every player is different, every student learns a different way. You're hearing a coach that is used to developing young talent. That's what you're hearing. You are hearing a coach that is used to working with younger players and trying to develop them. I don't want to speak for what was being done before because I wasn't, on the practice field.
Fair.
But you get a feeling that Lou Anarumo, he's a great coach, not bashing Lou, but you get a feeling from Lou, it was the same. Everything was being taught the same way. Like, here it is, you got to learn it. Lou is a very old school guy, and that's just not the way the league is anymore. And I think, again, I wasn't there, so I don't want to speak on what was being done, but I think these hires speak for that. You know what I mean? Like these hires that we're seeing right now are coaches that, again, are going to come in and work on developing young players. We heard the same thing from Montgomery. These guys understand that, that's the way this league is. You look at all these teams, you look at the Rams, you look at the Chiefs, you look at these teams that are so good at developing these young guys because they put them in the fire right away, and most of the time they play well. And you look at I'll give an example. Watching Karlaftis play for the Chiefs is so frustrating to me, right? Because we have a guy in Miles Murphy that is physically 100 times more talented, right? Athletically, 100 times more athletic than Karlaftis, but he just hasn't been developed yet. And I look at these guys around the league. Again, I look at a team like the Rams. This is a team that has the defensive rookie 2 years in a row, rookie of the year. That's so impressive, right? That's not just drafting well. That's developing players, and that's something that the Bengals have not been good at. I'll tell you what I really loved out of Al Golden's, because there was a lot of coach talk. But I'll tell you what I love about it is I love the fact that he said, when we have Joe Burrow, right? It is my job, meaning it is my job defensively to make sure that we are never missing the playoffs again. You know why? Because he knows that with Joe Burrow, there is no reason in hell you should ever not be in the playoffs or at least competing for a Super Bowl. And I love that about Al. I love that about his presser. You can throw all the coach speak aside, but I love the fact that he's already taking accountability, which we haven't seen a lot from this organization. I love the fact that he's coming in and already taking accountability and basically saying, like, listen, if we don't make the playoffs, it's my fault. You know why? Because we have the best quarterback in the NFL on the other side of the ball. We have the best player, maybe two of the top 5 best players in the NFL on the other side of the ball. There is no way in hell we should not be playing in the playoffs. And I love that. I love that he's taking accountability already.
Yeah, and I said this, I mean, we debated on here a lot, and a lot of the methodology for this offseason is getting things completely turned around and completely fixed. And the realization is that's not easily done in one season. My point, and I'll keep trying to hammer it home, is the defense being just a little bit better, and we're in the playoffs. Yeah. And you get Joe Burrow into the playoffs, and that's lights out. We don't have to be perfect. We just have to be a little bit better, one more stop. And yeah, it's coach speak, but he's out here coaching 23, 24, 25-year-old men. There's not many men even older than 31 years old on the team, and that's still a young man. Coach speak is what you need. And being able to get those people to follow you, to run through a brick wall for you, that's what we need. I think it's gonna do the trick.
I mean, listen, we talked about it. The defense is a little bit better, and we're probably competing for a Super Bowl this year.
Absolutely.
Up by 10 on the Ravens with 5 minutes left. You can't lose those. You can't lose those football games. You just can't. You can't lose those. Defensively, you've got to be better. I mean, you can't give up over 500 yards against the Pittsburgh Steelers, the worst offense in football. You can't do that. You give up over 40 points against the Pittsburgh Steelers. You can't do that. The Pittsburgh Steelers haven't scored 40 points in a game in over a decade. You can't do that. You just can't.
And that really seemed to be the game. We thought it was going to happen right after that game, but that really seemed to be the game that sealed Lou's fate, because the Steelers hadn't scored an offensive touchdown in a few weeks before that, and we just let them demolish us.
It was crazy.
And we still almost won that game. It was crazy.
I know. But,
Yeah.
I think defensively, I'm very excited about. I'm very excited about these hires, and again, it's not me being a homer. I just love the fact that these coaches they're bringing in are younger guys, right? I mean, Al Golden's not young, but his staff are guys in their late 30s that are trying to make a name for themselves. Listen, that's when good things happen. When you have assistants on your staff that want to be and take that next level and be defensive coordinators and take that next step, that's very important to have hungry coaches, just like it is to have hungry players. And I think this defensive staff just got stale. It got stale. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, for sure. We still, it's going to be a long off season. There's a lot to talk about. Like I said, we wanted to come on here and do a short show for you all tonight, just to kind of go through our Bengals counseling like we're going to do anyway, like we did at the end of the season. That's really what this is talking ourselves into next year being a good year. With that being said, we're going to put out a tweet here probably tomorrow. Send us your questions, whatever topic, we'll try and cover it. We'll probably do a 30-minute to an hour-minute show on Thursday. Come in, join the chat, engage with us, and throw us your Bengals questions, ask questions about Jake's high school team. I don't think there's really too many topics off the table. So we're looking to have a good, fun, interactive Q&A with our Bengals Pulse fans, and we'll probably do it a few more times, but this will be the first one of the off season. So
Cincy Light, don't ever apologize for asking too many questions or putting stuff in the chat. Listen, join us next week, Cincy Light. Join us on Thursday.
Next week
and next week and the week after that. And listen, guys, seriously, make sure you drop some questions in the comments section on Twitter, and then again, make sure you join us live on Thursday night. And again, the Q&A shows, Eric, are my favorite. I love interacting with the listeners, and because you guys are just so awesome. You're so awesome, and every show. You put so much good content in the chat, and we can't always talk about everything. But Thursday night, it's your night. It's your night, listeners. So make sure you join us on Thursday night and bring all those great comments that you bring every single show. We love you guys. We appreciate you guys. You're the best. You are the best. Once again, if you like this podcast, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to this podcast. Make sure you check us out on all the awesome podcast platforms, Apple, Stitcher, and Spotify. As always, follow Mon on Twitter at the FireMon. Follow me on Twitter at Coach Jake Owens 9. Follow Eric on Twitter at eFlash with 2 H's 88. Follow the Winston Podcast Network on Twitter at Winston Pod. And as always, guys, follow the Bengals Pulse on Twitter at Bengals_Pulse9. The same on Instagram without the @ Bengals_Pulse9. As always, guys, if you like this podcast, make sure you give us that 5-star review. We would very much appreciate that. And make sure you check out all the awesome podcasts right here on the Winston Podcast Network. Again, guys, Thursday night, we will be back here for Q&A. Make sure you join us. It's going to be a lot of fun. Our guy, Mon, will be joining us. He'll be back with us. Again, Mon, be safe tonight as you're out there protecting our community. He is Eric. I am Jake. This is the Bengals Pulse. Hoo day, Bengal fans. We will see you on Thursday.
Hoo day.